We will be creating this tic-tac-toe game today. Playing a tic-tac-toe and creating an actual game is very different. To create this we need to understand the functions, the logic behind the game. So keep watching. I will describe every logic and function briefly so you can understand well. Let's create our game.c file. Let's include our header files. We need windows.h file to refresh our display or clear the screen. In tic-tac-toe, we have a board that has 3 rows and 3 columns. So to create a board we need a 3-dimensional character variable that will store the values for our rows and columns cell. So the first row will have 1 2 3 as a default value, because we want our user to play their moves by entering these numbers as an indication. The second row will have 4 5 6. And yes, the last row will contain 7 8 9. So our board variable is declared. Now we need to create a function that will draw our board values into the display. We will call this function drawBoard, and the return type of this function will be void because we don't want anything returning from this function. Inside the function we will use a for loop to loop through the rows of the board. Here the I variable is the index of rows. We will loop it 3 times. The reason is simple, we have 3 rows. But remember, in programming counting start from 0. So we will start at 0 then 1 and the last index will be 2. Now we will print our board values and styling it a bit for looking like an actual tic-tac-toe board. The %c is the format specifier for character variable. Now we want to print it like an actual board. In real life actual board has 3 rows and 3 columns, and those rows is separated by 2 lines. So we need to create those lines for our board, and we don't want that line in our last row. So here we will create a if condition which will check if I is equal to 2 or not. If I is equal to 2 mean that we are in the last row. Remember, index start from 0. So if I is equal to 2 we will stop drawing lines, else we will insert line to our board. Let's check if the board is working. To check that we need to create our main function first. In Cprogramming, main function is the headquarter of the program where we need to call our user-defined functions. So now we will call our drawBoard function here to see if it is working or not. Yes, the board is working fine. Now we need to create a function for checking the game status. Like if the player is winning or the game is drawn. We will call this function checkWin. First we need to check the row first. Let me open my Paint tool to demonstrate the logic for you. Let's draw a board. and add the values of those cells as defined in our board variable. Now to win the game, a player need to match rows like this. Next, let add the index of rows and columns. Here you can see the pattern or logic to win a game from the rows perspective. For the first row we need 0, 0, 0, 1, and 0, 2 to have the same value. For the second row we need 1, 0, 1, 1, and 1, 2 to have the same value, and for the third row we need 2, 0, 2, 1 and 2, 2 to have the same value. Now let's add a for loop inside the function to implement the logic in our code to check the winning state from the rows. We will return 1 if there is a winner, or we will return 2 for a draw. Let's check our logic again. Now let's check the winning logic from the columns perspective. It is kind of similar to the row, so let me copy from that and modify that a little bit. Let's check our logic again for our column perspective. Now let's check from the diagonal perspective. we have two conditions for winning from diagonal perspective. One is 0 0, 1 1, and 2 2, and the other one is 0 2, 1 1, and 2 0. Let's check for a draw. For this we need a variable first. We will call this as count, and the value of count will be 0. Now let's create two for loops to check if all the cell filled up or not. If all the cell is filled up but still there is no winner, then we will call this a draw. Now if the count variable is not changed its value from 0, that means every cell in the board is filled up with player marks, so the game is actually drawn. And so if the count is still 0, we will return 2, and returning 2 means draw. That is for the check win function. Now let's return to our main function. In main function we need some variable first. We need row, column, move, game status and player variable. The player variable will have a default value as 1. Now we will create a while loop which will have 1 in its parameter. This means the loop will run infinite time until it see break inside its body. Here inside the loop we will assign player equal to 1 or 2. It is kind of tricky, but here at first we will check if player is even or odd by modulusing it with 2. If it is even, then modulusing it with 2 will return 0, that mean it will be true, and then player will be equal to 1. But if the player is odd, then the modulus will return 1, and thus for that reason player will be equal to 2. I hope you understand it. You can rewatch this section for better understanding. Now we will ask the current player to enter a move. Then add that move input to our move variable. Next we will check if the move is valid or not. But we need to first define our row and column according to our user move. Here row will be user move -1 and then the result will be divided into 3. The column will be same as row but the division will be changed to modulus by 3. Let me show you how it actually works. Suppose the user choose 4. So the row calculation will be like this. So the row will be 1. And the column will look like this. So the column will be 0. And that's how we will find the exact position of the cell. Now let's check if the user input is valid or not. If player is 1 then we will add the mark as X, or we will add the mark as O. If the cell is already filled then we will print a warning. And we want the same player to enter a valid input again, so we will decrement player by 1, I will explain this later at the end of the loop. Now after every player move we need to check the game status if the game is won by player or is it draw. So we will assign our variable game status to our checkWin function, because checkWin function will return 1 if anyone won, or it will return 2 if the game is draw. So if the game status is 1, then we will print the winner message and break the loop. Or if the game status is 2, then we will print the draw message and break the loop. Here I mistakenly delete a brace. Next, at the end of the while loop we will increment the player by 1 to switch the player. Now here you can see if a player input an invalid move, then why we decrement the player value. Let's run our program to check if it works well. We forget to add our drawBoard function in our main function. Let's add our drawBoard function. Now it's working. Let's enter some input. So the winning functionality working good, but here you can see that the last input mark didn't show up in our output. Let's fix this. Let's add a system clear functionality to clear the screen every time we enter an input. It still doesn't showing our last mark. Let's investigate more. Debugging is also a skill. Now it is working. Now let's check if the user enter an invalid input, what will happen. The problem here is, remember in our code we write that if the user enter an invalid input then we will print a warning, but since we are refreshing our display after every move, the warning message also get refreshed, so here we can't see any warning if we enter an invalid input. See, if we remove the system function we will see the warning. But let's add the system function as it is not a big problem. Finally, we created our tic-tac-toe game using C language. Congratulations! If you enjoy this video, please subscribe, or if you have any problem or question, feel free to ask in the comment section.